wasting money on cures. Forgot how to fix myself. They say that time is free. Then why is it so precious? Oh, I'll say memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. Time is running out. Time is running out. Lately I've lost my track. I've sailed the deepest seas, hoping to find something to bring back better times. Oh, I'll say memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. But time is running out. 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 Time is running. Time is running out. Time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over. They can't be over now. Time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over now. Time is running out. Time is running out. Time is running out.
Good evening, everybody. It's John here from Tutor to You, sitting in for one night only for Laura, who is away enjoying Christmas, I'm sure. Good evening to everybody who is joining us live, and a very warm welcome to anybody who is watching this on catch up. We are here for our final A-level psychology live stream for 2025, and tonight we're going to be concentrating on approaches. It's not going to be me asking the questions. It's going to be Sarah and Jade. Sarah on the left-hand side of the screen, Jade in the middle. Good evening to you both.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
And if you are watching us live, you'll know that hopefully you'll know what's going to happen. We've got a series of pieces of advice, but also some questions that Sarah and Jade are going to deliver. We would love to see your responses in the chat window. So if you're watching us live and you think you know the answers to the questions, do join in using that chat window. Even if you don't think you know the answers, give it a go. It's always useful to find out what the people out there are actually thinking. If you haven't watched one of these before, we're going to be using a PowerPoint, and that PowerPoint will be available for you to download as soon as this live stream finishes. And of course, we are recording this, so you can watch it all over again. That's all of the intros out of the way. Shall we get started? Here we go.
Sounds good. Thanks, John. So good evening, everyone. As John said, we are going to be talking about the assumptions of the approaches today. So approaches topic from paper 2. So in terms of the assessment objectives that we're targeting today, it will be the AO1, the knowledge and understanding is the key focus for this evening. So we can have the next slide. Thank you, John. So we're looking at the approaches, and a list essentially of what you need to know about the approaches is on the screen now. So for year 13, and you may be familiar that the spec has changed this year, but for you guys, this is what is still needed, is the outline of the assumptions of each approach, explaining the emergence of psychology as a science, evaluating the approaches, looking at the contributions of each approach, how it contributes to society, for example, applying knowledge of the approaches, and also a comparison of the approaches. But next, for this evening, the kind of focus is going to be to outline the assumptions of each approach and explain the emergence of psychology as a science. So what do the approaches claim or focus on, and how have they advanced science? The key question for this evening really is to say, what do each approach assume about human behavior? Where does human behavior come from according to that approach? So they would be kind of your key AO1 points for the beginning of an essay, perhaps on one of these approaches. So let's have a look at what we want to consider. So when exploring the assumptions of each approach, these are the kind of questions you want to be asking yourself. So these are the kind of things that you want to be thinking about in terms of how you approach starting an essay question on one of these approaches. So thinking about things like, what do they think about behavior and where does it originate from? What method do they adopt for investigation? So are they quite scientific or perhaps not? How do they claim that we develop as humans? So human development, how does it occur according to this approach? And how is the paradigm or the approach different to others? So you can think of kind of comparisons in terms of whether one is really scientific or not at all. So these are the kind of questions you want to be considering when you're thinking about what does this approach assume, or the assumptions about human behavior. So let's start with the behaviorist approach and answer essentially these questions. So if we're answering all four of these questions, this is a kind of run through of how you would approach that. So number one, all behavior is learned through classical or operant conditioning. That's kind of the main key thing, main approach, the main assumption rather of the behaviorist approach. So number two would be looking at how we study behavior. So with the behaviorist approach, we only want to study what we can actually see and observe in the environment. That would be the key for that question number two. For question number three, it's very much based on lab studies and experiments, this approach. So experiments should be used to investigate our human behavior. So we want kind of high control so that we can really isolate one behavior from another and see kind of what is causing or how that behavior is formed. And then finally, number four, we can learn about humans from animals as well. This is a key assumption of the behaviorist approach. We can study animals because animals are mammals just like humans, and we should study animals to try and get an understanding of human behavior. So I'm going to pass over to Jade now, and you're going to have a go at doing this with the social learning theory.
Thanks, Sarah. So in the chat then, guys, I would like you to write the assumptions of the social learning theory. So don't worry if you can't remember all four, just go with what you can remember. So can you write at least one assumption into the chat? Behaviour is learnt. Says Gabby, yes, well done. Behaviour is learnt. It's built on the principles of behaviorism, but it adds something as well. So it considers the cognitions, but it also considers how we learn from other people. Well done, Gabby. Isa says operant conditioning and classical conditioning, intimate role models through vicarious reinforcement. Some really good ideas there. So yes, it is built on the principles of behaviorism, but we are learning often vicariously. And I'll get into what that means in a minute. Well done, Isa. So perhaps that reinforcement can either be direct or indirect. Brilliant. That's a really good idea. That is one of our assumptions. Great. Okay, thanks, guys. Those are really, really good answers in the chat. Let's go to assumption one then. So all behaviour is acquired through direct or indirect learning. So I could see a lot of you putting that in the chat. So indirect learning is also known as vicarious learning. So vicarious means learning through other people, through watching other people, essentially. So we pay attention to other people, we retain what they're doing, and learning occurs through that. And then if that person we're watching is rewarded or if they're punished, we are inclined to either copy the behaviour or not copy the behaviour. So indirect learning, another word for indirect is vicarious. Right, let's look at assumption 2 then. We observe and imitate behaviour and adopt it if it is reinforced. Yeah, and we tend to observe people who we feel are similar to ourselves. So maybe it's the same sex, maybe it's a similar age. So our role models we tend to observe. We imitate that behaviour if we see that role model being reinforced, if we see them being rewarded somehow. That might be through praise from other people, often praise from other people. That's a sort of reward, and we want to get that praise as well. So let's have a look at assumption 3 then. Observations are the best method for documenting how learning occurs. So we need to look at the social interactions really to understand how social learning occurs. So of course, observing social interactions and situations, this makes sense, doesn't it? As a way of understanding learning. And if we think about Bandura's Bobo doll study, which is a study sort of in support of social learning theory, the study itself collected the data through a controlled observation. It was a lab experiment that collected the data through controlled observation. So that's a really famous example of how we might collect ideas about how learning occurs through observation. And let's look at assumption 4 now. So cognitive processes are involved. Now, mediational processes is another name for the cognitive processes that occur between stimulus and response. So we still have a stimulus and response, but something is mediating between them, meaning it gets between the stimulus and response. It's what's happening in terms of our internal processes. So there are 4. We pay attention we sort of observe what's going on around us. We notice. We then retain that information. And that is the learning. We sort of pay attention, we retain the information, we learn how to do something through watching other people, and then we reproduce that behaviour if we have the skills to do so. So if we look at a very young child, there may be things that they can't physically reproduce, like holding a pen, for example. They have to get a little bit older and a bit more dexterous to hold a pen. So they have to have the physical capability and the capacity to reproduce the behaviour. And if they do, the desire to produce that behaviour through watching, either being directly reinforced or indirectly reinforced. So 4 mediational processes, aka cognitive processes: attention, retention, motor reproduction, and having the motivation as well to perform that learned behaviour. Okay, so those are the assumptions of social learning theory. Let's go again into the chat. What are the assumptions of the biological approach? We had some really good answers for this one. So let's do this again. Biological approach, what are the assumptions? Into the chat, please. So Isa's put genetic. Yeah. So what about genes, Isa? Can we link it to how it explains behaviour? So what about genes specifically? But yes, a good idea there. Well done. Okay. So let's think about biological processes. What biological processes have we got going on? Behaviour explained by biology, says Brooke. Yes. Can we get more specific? So Isa said genetics. So one of the assumptions is this idea of genetics explaining our behaviour. Let's have a look here. Everything psychological is first biological, and to understand human behaviour, we must investigate processes within the body, such as genetics, hormones, and chromosomes. What an amazing answer. Brilliant. That is a really, really good answer. Well done. Shall we go to having a look at the assumptions then, guys? Let's have a look at assumption 1. So I think official B786 said more or less exactly this. All behaviour is physiological in origin or biological, essentially. So it could be a genetic basis, it could be a neurotransmitter basis, a hormonal basis, or it could be a brain structure that is influencing the behaviour. So there's kind of, I always think of 4 different kind of subsets of biology that we look at in psychology: hormones, neurotransmitters, brain structures, and genetics. Nature over nurture, someone's put linking to the issues and debates. That's wonderful, because linking and comparing the approach with issues and debates is really important. Well done. Let's have a look at number 2 then, assumption number 2. Genetics have evolved through natural selection. Now, this is an area that often gets missed by students. They know that genes have a role in behaviour, but they don't consider how those genes have been selected for across many thousands of years. So we've got to be careful here to think about what traits are adaptive, what traits help us survive, because ultimately the traits and the characteristics that help us survive according to evolution are the ones that get passed on. I often think about threat detection, and when we were hunter-gatherers, being able to detect threat and to like a predator and run away was important for our survival. But in a modern environment, that sort of same threat detection mechanism can become maladaptive. There aren't as many threats necessarily to our lives in the environment. And it can sort of cause that like a level of anxiety that might be an issue. So we have to think about the context. In the context of a few, many thousands of years ago, what was adaptive in comparison to now, and how have those traits been selected for? Let's have a look at assumption number 3 then. Behaviour is influenced by the brain and neurotransmitters. Right, so the neurotransmitters that we talk a lot about in psychology are serotonin and dopamine. So they come up time again. They come up when we look at depression, when we look at OCD, when we look at schizophrenia. So we talk about how these neurotransmitters have a hand in the behaviours or the symptoms associated with these different clinical diagnoses. So, if we think about high dopamine in OCD or low serotonin in OCD, and how serotonin is linked to mood, dopamine is linked to the compulsive behaviors. So these neurotransmitters, these chemicals in our nervous system influencing the symptoms that of the certain conditions, and then obviously brain structures as well. We talk about the worry circuit in OCD. We talk about enlarged ventricles in schizophrenia, if that's one of the optional topics you do. So lots of different examples, but the neurotransmitters dopamine and serotonin come up a lot, don't they? Right, let's look at assumption 4 then. Right, it's really important that you know the definitions of genotype and phenotype. So genes are just the genetic information that are passed to us through our parents, and phenotype, that is an expression of those genes in interaction with the environment. So I always use the example of height with my student. It is a physical characteristic, not psychological, but it's easy to understand. We have a certain genetic potential for our height. We might have the potential to be 6 foot tall, but if we are malnourished in childhood, we won't reach that potential. And that sort of, I don't know, we get to 5'5" or 5'6". That is an expression of the genotype, when we call that the phenotype. So I believe that I am handing back to. Oh no, I'm not. I'm still up. So, folks, we are going to have a go at a little quiz now to see if you have retained what we have said. So I'd like you to drop A or B or both, because sometimes it could be both. It could be both, A or B, into the chat, and we're going to have a look at statements that either relate to the cognitive approach or statements that relate to the psychodynamic approach, or both. So get ready on the keyboard, hover over A and B. Let's look at the first one. Models can be used to represent what goes on in our mind. Is that a statement that relates to cognitive A or psychodynamic B? Drop it in the chat now. Whoa, okay, brilliant, Isa. Yes, super work. Let's see if there's any more. We're getting a lot of A's. That is fantastic, guys. Really, really good work. Yes, indeed. It is A. Well done. Really, really good. Let's have a look at another one then. Childhood experiences play a crucial role in how we develop. Oh, okay. Let's have a go at this then. A or B in the chat? Go. Well done, Gabby. Well done, Isa. Really, really good responses tonight. Well done, Brooke. Well done, Cantaloupe Squared. And excellent name. Brilliant. Yes, so I'm getting a lot of B's in the chat. Well done. That is spot on. Let's have a look at the next one. Defense mechanisms play a crucial role in our personality development. Okay, cognitive A, psychodynamic B. Off you go. Oh, that was really quick. Well done. Quick as you can, guys. Get in there. Into the chat. Brilliant. Have a guess if you don't know. Super. Really, really good. The clue there is defense mechanisms, isn't it? That's a really key Freudian term associated with the psychodynamic approach. Well done. Let's have a little look at the last one. I think it might be the last one. We'll see. Let's have a look. Right. So the mind actively processes information from our senses, such as touch and taste. Is this A or is this B? Cognitive or psychodynamic? Off you go. Yeah, we have got 100% right correct responses in the chat today. I think this one, is a little bit trickier, perhaps. Okay, yeah, I'm getting A's. Any more for any more? Okay, well done to 3 people who got A. That is wonderful. Super work. So I'm going to pass back to Sarah now.
Oh, I think we've got one more here, Jade, but it's okay. I can do it. Thanks. So between stimulus and response are complex mental processes, which can be studied scientifically. So do we think A or B for this last one here? Good work, everyone. Get an A or a B in the chat for this last one. Between stimulus and response are complex mental processes, which can be studied scientifically. So cognitive or psychodynamic. What do we think? I think I'm seeing some A's there. Good work. Okay, let's check and see if we were right. It is A. Fantastic. Really well done. Studying mental processes scientifically is absolutely the cognitive approach, isn't it? Fantastic. Well done. Okay, we're going to move on to do a bubble quiz now. So have a look at this. The number of answers that are correct can range from 0 to all 4. So essentially, we're going to pose a question and the answers can be A, B, C, or D, or a combination of all of them, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, for example. So have a look at this first one. So it says, which of the following is an assumption of the humanistic approach? So A is subjectivity is the best way to learn about people as a whole. So again, do get your answers in the chat for us, but take your time with this and read them properly to check if there's more than one answer. We should break behavior into testable parts for part B. C is subjectivity is not scientific enough. Or D, people learn behaviours vicariously. So you've had quite a lot of these terms tonight from Jade. Think about, each of these statements definitely relates to an approach, but is it definitely an assumption of the humanistic approach? So let's get some answers in the chat. Do you think A, B, C, or D, or a combination of those letters? I've got one answer from official B786 who said A. Fantastic, good start. Anyone else want to contribute there? I see another A. Thank you. So A says subjectivity is the best way to learn about people as a whole. And I think it's a fantastic answer, definitely, and definitely relates to the humanistic approach. If you think about the opposite of subjectivity is objectivity. We know that the humanistic approach is not objective because it doesn't align with science. It is very subjective in the sense that it takes each individual as a unique case. So A definitely does play a role. Let's reveal the answer and see if there were any others. You're absolutely right. A was the only appropriate answer there. Part B, breaking behaviour into testable parts, is not something that aligns with the humanistic approach. Definitely that sort of suggests some kind of scientific reductionist approach, which is not what the humanistic approach is all about. Subjectivity is not scientific enough. That is a true statement, but it's not an assumption of the humanistic approach. It would be more of an AO3 comment, which obviously we're just focusing on the AO1 assumptions this evening. And then people learn behaviours vicariously. Well, Jade spoke beautifully there about the social learning theory and about vicarious reinforcement, and that is absolutely an assumption of the social learning theory and not the humanistic approach. So well done everyone for getting A. Let's have a look at another example. So which again is the following, which of the following is an assumption of the humanistic approach? So again, 4 answers. It could be A, B, C, or D. It could be a combination. So have a read. We must fulfill deficiencies to achieve self-actualization. We must fulfill deficiencies to achieve cultural actualization. We must fulfill deficiencies to achieve incongruence, or we must fulfill deficiencies to have a good ego. So think there, get your answers in the chat, A, B, C, or D. Which ones align with the humanistic approach? Ones or one? Let's see. I think we have a couple of answers for A already. Good work. Anyone else want to contribute there? A, B, C, or D, or a combination? So just to talk through A, you're absolutely right. A is definitely an answer. Thank you again for contributions. So we must fulfill deficiencies to achieve self-actualization. If you think of the hierarchy of needs from the humanistic approach, the peak of that is self-actualization. But in order to get there and to fulfill our full potential, we have to achieve other things first, like basic physiological needs, self-esteem, love and belonging, safety. Those things need to be overcome first and fulfilled in order to meet self-actualization. And I suppose the aim in life is to get there, and we're all striving to get there according to the approach. Part B, cultural actualization, is just kind of a made up term. Part C is about achieving incongruence. The aim really is just to achieve congruence. We want to be in a state of our ideal self matching our self-concept rather than being in a state of incongruence, because that's when problems and mental health issues can occur. And then the last one about having a good ego, well, the ego aligns with the psychodynamic approach, and yeah, it's just not necessarily relevant here. So you're absolutely right. A is the only working bubble. We must fulfill deficiencies to achieve self-actualization. So let's look at a third and final one. Again, which of the following is an assumption of the humanistic approach? So A, all behaviour is physiological at first. We've heard that term tonight already. The focus should be on understanding the person as a whole. An ideographic approach is appropriate for investigating people, and we should do case studies to generate laws of behaviour. So what do we think there? A, B, C, or D, or perhaps a combination of multiple? I see an answer here already for B and C. Very quick tonight, B786, well done. C and B, and Isa, you said B. Absolutely, really good contributions. Any more contributions before we talk through them? Okay, thank you for contributing, everyone. So the first one, A, you're absolutely right, is not correct. All behaviour is at first physiological, is absolutely not the case for the humanistic approach. That aligns more so with the more scientific approaches, such as the biological approach, which you've heard from Jade about tonight. B, absolutely is true. The focus should be on understanding the whole person. That's what the humanistic approach is about. The title has the name in it, human. It's all about the human. The whole experience is necessary to kind of analyze, to understand what's going on with someone's behavior. So that does align definitely as an assumption of the humanistic approach. Part C, an idiographic approach. You're absolutely right. It is idiographic. Obviously, if you're thinking of issues and debates, idiographic versus nomothetic, the humanistic approach absolutely takes an idiographic approach where it looks at individual unique cases and uses case studies to try and analyze human behavior, because it thinks it's important to understand the whole person and get some qualitative detail to understand human behavior, rather than studying things scientifically and isolating certain features. And then part D, we should do case studies to generate laws of behavior. Case studies don't generate general laws of human behavior. They can't. They have too smaller sample sizes. Nomothetic approaches with large sample sizes that are quite scientific will help us to generate general laws of human behavior, but the humanistic approach and case studies is not one of those. So really well done, and thank you for your contributions to the bubble quiz. We're going to do multiple choice questions now with Jade. Thank you.
Thanks. Right. So we've got 6 multiple choice questions, and this brings together a lot of what we've talked about this evening. So try your best and have a go. Let's start off with one we definitely have covered tonight. So which approach assumes that behaviours are always physiological at first? Let's have everybody with the answer in the chat to that one, please. Off you go. Fantastic. Someone's answered already. It's got the right answer already. Well done. Brilliant. So we've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right answers. Brilliant. Yes, well done. It is C, biological. Let's have a look at the second one. Which approach assumes that researchers should only study what is observable? So what we can see around us. Is it behaviorist? Is it humanistic, or is it biological? Into the chat, A, B, or C. Okay, we've got a mix of answers. Oh, Isa's changed his answer. Okay, that's absolutely fine. So well done for correcting yourself as well, because that's not always easy to do. So yes, we are looking at behaviorism, observing stimulus response in the environment. Well done. Let's look at number 3. Which approach assumes that we use mental shortcuts to process the world around us? Is it A, humanism, B, cognitive, or C, psychodynamic? Into the chat, A, B, or C. Very good. Well done. Brilliant. I've got all right answers into the chat so far. So it is indeed B, cognitive. Well done. Question number 4 then. Which approach assumes that all behaviours or all behaviour are driven by unconscious drives? Is it A, social learning theory, B, humanistic, or C, psychodynamic? Into the chat, off you go. Wow, that was really quick. Yeah, this one I think you're quite confident on. Very, very good. So Freud was the thinker that really spoke about the unconscious drives. So it is indeed the psychodynamic approach. Really well done. Question 5 then, let's have a look. Which approach assumes that cognitions are involved in learning? Is it A, social learning theory, B, biological, or C, behaviorist? So cognition, so thought processes are cognitions. So which approach assumes that thought processes are involved in learning? A, B, or C? Into the chat. Okay, we've got a few mixed responses there. That's okay. That's absolutely fine. So this one, well done, Isa, really good. This one is social learning theory. Remember, although it's based on behaviorism, although it does account for stimulus to response, direct learning, the cognitions are the mediational processes that come between stimulus and response, and they are a type of cognition or thought process. Well done if you got that right. Let's have a look at one more then. Which approach assumes that we should reject the idea of breaking behavior or people into testable parts? A, cognitive, B, psychodynamic, or C, humanistic? So last question now. Let's have everybody with the answer. Well done. Got one right answer so far. Any more? Oh, wow, they're coming in now. Okay, brilliant. I think everybody is right so far. Super. Yes, it is C, humanistic. Really, really well done, everyone. The engagement was fantastic there.
Absolutely, yes. And I've obviously been watching all evening. Some wonderful, wonderful responses from everybody tonight. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. If you have found tonight useful, do give us a thumbs up in YouTube. That helps us get our message out there a little bit more. Listen, if you've been involved in any of these over the last few months or the whole of 2025, a big thank you to you as well, of course. But the biggest thank you, of course, must go to Sarah and Jade for delivering those, what I thought were quite difficult questions tonight. But we have got some really, really good responses. Now, listen, that's the last one of 2025, but we will be back very soon. I think it's January the 14th when psychology resumes. So very soon into the new year. Do join us then. So between now and then, all that's left for me to say on behalf of everybody at Tutor to You, the entire psychology team, and from Sarah, Jade, and myself, have a wonderful Christmas, a brilliant break, and a happy new year. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks all.